Everyone always talks about just how verbose Java is, but you ever sit and think maybe the issue is you? No, you haven't. Well, I'm here to tell you that it is you by showing you the things that you do now that are outdated. Java 8 may have been verbose. Java 25, not so much. And it's not just me that is saying how Java isn't the issue, but you are. It is also Adam, the developer here on dev.to. Don't know how I found this article, but I did. And I highly recommend giving it a read. I'll link it down in the description below. Now, we will be going over some of the examples that he laid out. I also want to give some of my examples and add to it. And yes, you may have noticed in the past few videos, I'm finally in my new office. It's not done yet. Full office tour probably coming soon, hopefully once I finish. First is the call site, how you create your object. Here's the kind of code people write and then blame the language Java for being verbose. This old Java bean pattern, you create a new user and then you have setters galore. Set name, set age, set email, set active, set, and then you save user in a repo in this instance. 6 lines to create one object. Or you could use the telescoping pattern, which is just really for this 2 lines. Create the new user and then name, age, email, active. Save that user into repo. And if you don't know why it's called a telescoping pattern, it's because with each new field, it grows like a telescope. One of the few good names that tech has ever come up with, because everything else seems to not make any sense and they give 5 names for the same thing way too often. Or you can do it in 1 line if you don't need to store the reference. But what happens if, we have more than 4 fields? What happens if we have 12 optional fields and you just keep adding more to the telescope? No, that just gets unwieldy. You come back up here and you just add more setters? Of course not. That's when you need to change the construction style from a telescoping or Java bean pattern to a static factory and fluent with methods, or a builder pattern. So you'll use these because they're cleaner and if you have optional or nullable fields. And if you're going to look at this and say, well, look at all of this code, that is obviously very verbose. You're not proving any point here. No, this is not verbosity. This is the class. This is not the call site that we were just comparing it to. You implement these patterns once and you use them everywhere. That's not verbosity, that's design clarity, which is a good thing. The call sites are down here. So this is the same one from the article, the telescoping pattern. Here is the named factory with fluent modifiers. As you can see, instead of having a name and is active up here, you have active named with the name and then the email and then the age and then whatever other field that you want. And then here's the call site for the builder pattern. If we wanted to make sure and go ahead and run this, you can see that we have saving user for article 1-liner, factory with the fluent modifiers, and then the builder pattern all have the same data within them. But they're called different names because they're all in the same file. I have all of these classes within this class for the constructor styles, and I'm calling them all within the same file. Obviously, in real code, I wouldn't be doing all of this, but for the video's sake, I needed them all in one file. Makes it easier for me. The beautiful getters and setters in 2025. If you aren't using Lombok in 2025, I don't even know what you're doing, but that's not what this is about. If you're manually typing out get X and set X, I guess it is kind of what it's about. But anyway, methods in 2025, you're not a professional developer, you're a human code generator. Records have been around since Java 14. They're stable, they're production ready. Use them. So public record user, this is same name, age, email, active. And that is the entire class. You get constructors and getters and equals and hash code and toString for free, but sure, keep writing 50 lines of boilerplate and complaining about verbosity. Why in English does it go from verbose to verbosity? It doesn't make any sense. And while that is true, which this is that same code right here, as you can see, you can also do more. This within the record is what is known as a compact constructor, or technically a compact canonical constructor. It's the record's primary constructor body without repeating the parameter list. So if you want to add invariance and normalization, this is where you do it. I'm doing 3 things, two things. Require a non-null name and email, and I'm guarding against age being negative. Also note that records are immutable, so when you want to do something like DTOs, configs, events, API shapes, things of that nature, good option. And I mentioned Lombok earlier. This is not a good use case for Lombok because when it comes to data carriers, a record's just cleaner. But when you need a class for like JPA entities or anything that needs to be mutable, use Lombok to tame it a little bit. Or a lot of it. You get it. Oh yeah, and you could also normalize. I did mention normalize. So if you wanted to do name equals name dot trim dot strip, whatever you want to do, you could do something like that. You could do the same thing for email. And then you want to add it all to lowercase. So you could do all that stuff in a record. But you probably already know that. If you're a professional in the field and familiar. Here it is. Check out this thing. I got this a while ago, but I didn't feel like ripping apart my water cooling system in order to put it in. But if you're just starting out your journey, you may not. And yes, I know my office is a mess. I just moved in. But that's besides the point, because the reason I showed you this is because NVIDIA, the company that makes these graphics cards, has certifications online for you. And certifications can be incredibly helpful because they increase your marketability to employers or clients by validating your expertise and showing your skills are up to date. Get certified by NVIDIA, and the whole idea is to validate and showcase your skills and expertise. And they have a litany of certifications for infrastructure professionals, for data scientists, and for developers, with a lot here, but two new ones, the Agentic AI LLM certification and the Generative AI LLM certification. For the former, the idea is to be able to validate your ability to architect, develop, deploy, and govern advanced agentic AI solutions, among other things. And the Generative AI one is to validate your ability to design, train, and fine-tune cutting-edge LLMs, among other things. And the whole idea is for you to be able to showcase your abilities, get certified, and take that certification to be able to advance your career and show that you have these skills and you are certified by NVIDIA. So if that's of interest to you, use my link in the top of the description and make sure you use my code ForestK20 to get 20% off your exam. And they have preparation, they have a blueprint, and the ability to contact them. So check it out. Now for people who avoid VAR because it's confusing. He says, no, it's not confusing, but you know what is? The thing that you use instead of using VAR, like map, string, list, complex business object, group data, complex service, .get grouped data. Or instead, you could just have a good method name right here, use var, because the method name tells you exactly what it's going to be, and it's a whole lot cleaner. As he says, if your method names are so bad that removing the explicit type declaration makes code unreadable, your problem isn't var or Java, it's your inability to write clear code. And that is the whole point of var. Don't get confused with JavaScript var. This is not the same thing. It was never to be clever. It's type inference and it's still statically typed and the compiler knows the type. You don't have to retype it. I feel like people are just afraid that it's making Java dynamic, which that's not at all what it's doing. For example, here we have it all typed out, explicit map of nums list of 1, 2, 3. This is just using var inferred map of IDs list of 10, 20, 30. So it's the same thing. It's a map of this with a list of that. And we're printing them out explicit and inferred. And you can see we already ran this code. Explicit nums 1, 2, 3 inferred IDs 10, 20, 30. Because again, the initializer makes the type obvious. The compiler still knows the type. And also, even if this isn't a perfect description of what it is, you can always look at the initializer on the right-hand side to see what it is. If it's vague, then sure, type this out so it's easier to read. But this is pretty clear and straightforward. It's a map of string list of integers. Map of string list of integer. This is just redundant. And I had a couple other examples of how, you can use var within a for loop to make it cleaner, as well as you can use var with lambda now, when I say now, I mean Java 11. And also just to be clear, in order for the Java compiler to know what type it is, obviously you have to have an initializer. This won't work. Because it's like, I don't know what inferred is supposed to be. Whereas this, it's like, okay, map of string and list of integers. Okay. That way you can annotate the lambda params uniformly. And so you're not doing something like this which is obviously not very pretty. I don't know. I don't like it. So you just kind of throw non-null var in. It looks good. So yeah, just have good names and clear initializers over here, and you can use var. Pattern overload for trivial logic. We've all seen it. The user factory, the user builder, the user manager. Wait. User factory, user builder. Who the heck does this guy think he is? Well, at least I don't have the user service, the user helper, the user util. 5 classes to accomplish what should be a constructor and 2 methods. Design patterns exist to solve actual problems, not to make your code base look enterprise. If you're creating a factory pattern to instantiate a POJA with 3 fields, you're not writing good Java, you're writing a resume. He's not wrong. Listen, I was clear earlier with the factory and the builder pattern. I didn't need both of them. I was just doing each in order to show for an example. Plus, even if we were to just use one, that was in the context of lots of optional fields and construction complexity. That is a place where it makes sense. This section is different though. If we really are just talking about a plain old Java object with 3 fields, don't overcomplicate it. Just keep the behavior with the data, which is just a constructor with a couple of methods, and you're done. And something else you are doing apparently is ignoring modern language features, because Java over time has become less verbose with every single release, especially Java 25, mind you. Java has evolved significantly, but some developers are still writing like it's 2005. And by the way, when I say maybe the issue is you as to why Java is verbose, I'm talking to me. Java 8 is so ingrained in my head that I have to study and try to remember and make videos about all of the updates after Java 8. Again, we're all the way up to Java 25. So in reality, what I'm doing here is I'm just making a video for myself. Y'all just happen to be watching. So Java 14 introduced switch expressions, clean pattern matching instead of verbose if-else chains, which would look a little bit like this. This is that if, else, this. This is what you had to do pre-switch expression in Java 14, and it's so bad that even this tooltip here is quick fix. Oh, convert ifs to switch statement. Thank you so much. Oh, and the formatting isn't quite right. Rule switch, okay. However, this still isn't quite as clean as it could be, as you see here. This is the same exact information as this, but you can clean it up quite a bit by taking out a lot of this. But that's neither here nor there. I just wanted to show you what you had to do before Java had switch expressions. And the example that Adam gave actually looked a little bit like this. I changed it ever so slightly to make it a little more readable, a little bit safer. But you have a switch statement with type patterns, with record patterns. So pattern matching did not come until Java 21, which is why I included just a regular switch expression here. Pre-Java 21, after Java 16, for pattern matching, you would use instance of in an if statement because you couldn't do it in a switch expression. This was the first taste of pattern matching in Java. So instead of all of this, now in Java 25, thanks to Java 21, you could just do this, where you have a switch statement, you have your type patterns, you have your record pattern destructuring here, and it looks a whole lot nicer. And in Java 15, Java finally added text blocks, multi-line strings without the nightmare of concatenation. It's exactly what you would expect, something like this, var JSON text block, so that you can read multi-line strings. I don't know why it took so long, but it did. But it's here. They are nice though, because they're actually indentation aware. They preserve the actual formatting here. So when it comes to DSLs, SQL, and JSON, it just makes it cleaner. It's something I feel like should have been in there for a long time, but it's here now, and it's been here for a while, so I really can't complain. Pattern matching for instance of in Java 16, I already mentioned that, no more casting after type checks, but again, only applicable to if statements, not switch expressions just yet until Java 21. Sealed classes in Java 17, controlled inheritance hierarchies, so that way you're able to explicitly control which subclasses can exist. So if you take sealed classes and you sprinkle in a little bit of pattern matching, all of a sudden Java is expressive, or at least it's as close as we're going to get. And then we have record patterns, which I already briefly mentioned and showed you of the destructuring and the switch statement, destructuring records directly in pattern matches. Okay, now I'm being verbose, just redundant. These aren't experimental features, they're here, and they have been for a while. They work, and they make Java significantly less verbose. But you'd know that if you'd read a changelog in the last 5 years. This guy is very aggressive. I thought I was aggressive sometimes, but no, this guy, he takes the cake. And I referenced a couple of these examples earlier, but it shows the records for data classes, the pattern matching with switch expressions, the text blocks, and then streams and lambdas for functional style operations, as you can see right here, which, as he does rightfully say, is it verbose? No, not really. Is it clear? Yeah, it kind of is. And is it modern? Yes, it's exactly what you should be doing. The language has grown up. Have you? Well, I prefer to keep the kid alive inside me, so. But insert language here is less verbose. I hate this argument, although I do feel like Kotlin would have been a better language to insert right here, but let's just go with it. Yes, Python lets you write this. I understand that. Dynamic typing, not the same type of programming. Runtime, compile time, big difference here. JavaScript, sure, something like this. I don't think JavaScript is the language that we should be pointing to for best practices. Go is intentionally minimal. Go is pretty nice. Java, though, has type safety, backwards compatibility, and explicit contracts. There's a reason why Java is still thriving today, not just being maintained in old code bases, but being used in new code bases, powering Netflix. I always share that example because I think Netflix is just really good in terms of software. Pick your shows. Some of the shows are good, some of them are not, whatever, but you get the idea. If that's verbose to you, you're really saying, I don't want to think about types. Exactly. This is the reason why people use JavaScript instead of TypeScript. It is called laziness, which is fine. Just don't pretend it's a language flaw when it's design philosophy you disagree with. And I completely just skimmed over, hope you enjoy the 2 + 2 equals this 22 and 3 different ways to declare variables depending on which year you learned the language, because this is one of my favorite things about Java and languages like it, is that they are definitive and they make sense. This may be shorter, but Java, stay with me now, is simpler. Because it's just straightforward. It's explicit. All right, of course, we're going to have to talk about this. The abstract singleton proxy factory bean, or whatever you want to use, straw man. Let's address the elephant in the room. Spring Framework's infamous this. I'm not going to read it again. Yes, it exists. Yes, it's ridiculous. No, you don't write that. Spring does, and you probably never interact with it directly. Not only that, but Spring actively discourages you from using this because it's outdated, it's low level, it's from the earlier era of Spring AOP development. In other words, it's obsolete, but they keep it in there just in case. But you don't use it in modern application. Blaming Java for Spring's internal implementation details is like blaming English because legal documents are hard to read. I don't agree with that, because when it comes to Spring, how much it does and has done for the Java ecosystem, you're probably going to be using it most of the time. Whereas when you're using English, you're not going to be using legal documents most of the time. So not the best analogy. Although we did say modern Spring Boot applications are concise and straightforward to understand. What average developer who's worked with REST frameworks wouldn't understand this? And I'll agree with that. This isn't verbose. No XML files. Where's the abstract factory singleton proxy, whatever? Oh, right. It's 2025, not 2008. And that's exactly right. Because just like Java has been getting less verbose and cleaner over time, so is Spring. And speaking of outdated practices, your null checks are embarrassing and shameful. Let's talk about this crime against humanity. All right, so 4 lines, 2 null checks, 1 return value, return null down here, whereas the modern approach is something along these lines. And unlike all of the other examples where it's like, hey, you're just coding an old Java, this is Java 8 code right here. So if you're coding like this, that's just bad code. Unless you're some sort of Java 5 developer. But typically, when companies get stuck on a Java version, it was Java 8. Or if you're using records and keeping things null safe by design, you don't even need optional and you just return user.email. Records can't be null by design. That's not true. Records they're still a class. They're just a class with compiler generated members like constructor, equals, everything else we discussed. What he may have thought of is when you dereference a null record. So if a record type defines a class, and then a record instance is an object Well, all objects in Java can be null. A record is still a reference type, exactly like any class you would write. So let me just give you this example. Maybe this is what he was thinking of. I'm not exactly sure. But if you were to assign null to user record ref, and by design records couldn't be null, then this code wouldn't compile. But instead what it does is it catches and it should throw this null pointer exception message right here, which as you can see, it does. Deref null record, null pointer exception, records can be null references, which is what I have typed here for the catch. And when we try to call ref.email, we're trying to dereference a null reference, which triggers the null pointer exception. You tried to call a method on a null object. So the fact that we would have a null pointer exception being thrown when we try to assign it null, well, that proves that it can be null. Yeah, so maybe that's what he meant. I don't know. Maybe I just completely misread what he was saying. But you can handle the null in a certain way. You can have it guarded. You can have optional, happy path. There's a litany of ways. And I skipped a handful of sections. Y'all feel free. Link below underneath the NVIDIA link. Give it a read, give it a heart or whatever you do on dev.to. Feel free to subscribe to the channel and leave a like on the video if you want. But I thought that was a fascinating topic. Java isn't verbose, you are. And I think that is a point that a lot of us needed to hear. So I'll see you on the next one.